Hello, dear students. I am Mukesh Kumar Meena, Assistant Professor in English, SPNKS Government PG College, Dosa. You are welcome to this video lecture. Today, we will discuss about the presence of interior monologue in the play The Emperor Jones, or The Emperor Jones as a piece of psychoanalysis. Monologue is a compound word made up of two separate words, mono meaning one and logos meaning speech. Hence, a monologue is the speech of one individual. He talks to himself and thus lays bare before the audience and readers his innermost thoughts and emotions. It is the same thing as the interior monologue of the modern stream of consciousness novelists like James Joyce, Dorothy Richardson, Virginia Woolf. The device is used to express the soul or psyche of a character, and O'Neill has also used it in The Emperor Jones with this very end in view. The first scene and the last scene of the play consist of realistic dialogue in the best manner of O'Neill, but the central six scenes, scenes 2nd to scene 7th, which take place at night in the forest, are sustained pieces of the interior monologue of Jones. It is through the use of monologue that we have been given a peep into the terror stricken, anguished soul of Brutus Jones. A brief analysis of these forest scenes shows a step by step spiritual disintegration and regression of the erstwhile emperor. In these scenes, he is seen continuously talking to himself as visions from his personal past of crime and evil doing, as well as from his racial past, crowd in upon him. In scene 2nd, we find James in the grip of an extremely intensified fear complex. He is continuously talking to himself in order to get rid of the nervousness and fear to which he has become subject owing to the woods and the threatening beat of the tom tom. He has mistaken the route which he should have taken, and when he looks for the white stones under which he had hidden his food, he finds that they have disappeared. This makes him even more nervous, and the strain of his strenuous journey of 3 hours begins to tell upon him. Finally, he is overcome by hunger and has the horrifying hallucinatory vision of the little formless spheres squirming upwards towards him. Throughout this period, except for this hallucinatory vision, which is a figment of his overwrought mind, Jones is alone on the stage, and the nervous fear of which he is the victim is conveyed to the audience in a dramatic manner with the help of his monologue. In scene 3rd, we have retrospective dramatic monologue in which Jones imagines that he is seeing the ghostly figure of the Negro Jeff, whom he had killed in a quarrel over a game of dice. This figure is nothing but a hallucinatory apparition conjured by the overwrought brain of Jones. He addresses it directly and tries to talk to it. Finally, not finding any response, he gets nervous and fires at the apparition with furious rage. The moment the smoke clears away, he finds that he is alone in the forest. In scene 4th, we find a completely exhausted and miserable Jones, the erstwhile emperor. He tears away the frippery emperor trappings from his body. It makes him feel lighter. Throughout, he continues talking to himself in a wild fashion. The things which he keeps seeing have made him absolutely nervous. He tries to reassure himself that there are no such things and tells himself, these are the lines from the play. He tells himself, you just get seeing damn, thing, seeing damn things cause your belly is empty and you're sick with hunger inside. Almost immediately after this, he has another hallucinatory vision and prays aloud to Lord Jesus. His guilty conscience makes him see the vision of that white prison guard who had whipped him across the back and whom he had killed in a fit of anger. The whole scene is reenacted on the stage of his mind. The impression is so vivid that he actually gets into the posture of striking at the guard. Just as he feels sure that he has caught him, he realizes with sudden horror that his hands are empty. He shouts with baffled, terrified rage, tugging frantically at his revolver. He addresses the figure of the guard directly and fires point blank at his back. Immediately, the whole vision is blotted out, and Jones stands alone in darkness. In scene fifth, as the night advances, John's journey through the forest becomes more and more tormented. His morale has sunk and his lose of courage is no longer kept up. In anguish, he sits and moans, raising to Lord Jesus the desperate cry of a poor sinner and asserting that the Lord will preserve me from them haunts. But his words lack conviction as his faith is not deep enough. As the primitive jungle tightens its grip over Jones, he throws away his shoes, adding truthfully, Emperor, you say getting mightily Emperor, you say getting mighty low. The hallucination that Jones has in this scene is not the projection of his own unconscious. It is the first Jungian touch that O'Neill provides in the play, for the auction scene set in a southern state of America is part of Jones' collective unconscious. It is a part of the racial memory of the Negroes, what Young calls collective unconscious. The hallucinatory visions presented in scenes 6th and 7th are two of the greatest triumphs of the modern psychoanalysis and the law of mental association. The first of these visions makes Jones feel that he has already been sold as a slave and he finds himself on board a galley where he is plying at the oars like a common galley slave. The pathetic wail of the slaves, in which Jones also joins, is symbolic of the bottomless pit of despair into which he has fallen. It is not possible for a man to descend lower than this. He has lost all hopes of being saved and has turned into a perfect nervous wreck. In this scene, we find the combination of dramatic monologue and pantomime. Finally, the unconscious associations in John's mind carry him to the original home of his ancestors into the dark and dreadful jungle of Africa, where in a horrifying vision he joins in the crooning and dancing of the Congo witch doctor, who by a gesture seems to tell him that he must offer himself as a sacrifice in order to appease an angry god. Then the huge head of a crocodile with wide open jaws appears on the stage, and Jones, hypnotized by the fascinating glare of its green eyes, moves towards it with deliberately slow steps, all the time praying to Lord Jesus to have mercy on him. Then all of a sudden the spell is broken, and coming out of his trance, Jones fires at the crocodile. Immediately the whole vision disappears, and Jones lies with fear, flat on the ground, his arms outstretched, whimpering as the throb of the tom-tom fills the silence about him with a somber pulsation, a baffled but revengeful power. Throughout these scenes, Jones is alone on the stage. All these six scenes are sustained pieces of dramatic monologue. Through these monologues of the ex emperor, his tortured and anguished soul is laid bare before the readers. They are clever pieces of psychoanalysis, such as had never before been presented on the American stage. Throughout, we are concerned with what is passing in the mind of Jones. Our involvement in his spiritual plight is total. Thanks for listening.